I hope that you'll stay tuned because we have another exciting one coming up next year, exploring some of the key issues and ideas that are of concern to all of us. This year we've looked at the economy, we've looked at healthcare, we've looked at global warming, and now we're going to be looking this evening at Afghanistan and Iraq. Here, moderating the discussion, or in fact leading the witness, is Tom Patterson of the Shorenstein Center at the Kennedy School, and he's also the Bradley Professor of Government and the Press.
Absolutely. We're just delighted to have Nick Burns with us tonight, and maybe I'll start with a question related to your last posting. You were the lead negotiator for the U.S. on the Iranian nuclear program.
How should we think about the use of military force against Iran? A lot of people, particularly on the right wing of our political spectrum, are saying, well, let's bomb Iran. Let's set them back several years in their nuclear planning. Or let's have Israel do it. My position is, and I was the chief negotiator on Iran between 2005 and 2008 for the U.S. in the second Bush term, is that would be a catastrophic mistake. I think we should try to outlast the Iranians, be very tough with them, encircle them politically, sanction them economically, but don't go to war. That'd be my recommendation.
It's clear that we have a kind of an uneven partner in Karzai and in the Afghan government. So help us to understand a little bit how important that piece of the puzzle is in terms of how well we're likely to do over this roughly 18-month window that the President has defined as sort of where we're going to keep troops there in large numbers.
Well, I think when the President ran in 2008, he said consistently, the central front on the war on terrorism is not in Iraq, it's in Afghanistan. And frankly, I agree with that. So I thought for the President to say that was strategically correct. I admired the time that he took, especially last autumn. Remember, he took about 3.5 months in an Afghan policy review. It was very public. He said, okay, I ran on this platform, but now I'm questioning my own assumptions. And I thought that was refreshing, that before an American president would order more men and women into battle, into combat, that he would take his time and make sure that we were making the right decision. I think he did by adding the 30,000 troops. We'll be up to about 108,000 troops in a couple of months this summer. I think that was the right decision. I also think it was the right decision to go on a glide path out of Iraq, the other key decision he made in 2009. And I think this is going to take some time, by the way. I assume we're going to have troops in Afghanistan 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Then I think that that will be a successful effort, just to give them that time, to push the Taliban back, to prevent a Taliban victory, to keep al-Qaeda from coming back into Afghanistan. But ultimately, we'd be crazy to think of this the way we did Vietnam.
I'm speaking of Pakistan, and recently the U.S. and Pakistan strengthened their strategic ties. Secretary of State Clinton called it a new day in the relations between the two countries. You know, I think for most Americans, including myself, there's very little kind of sense of or understanding of kind of where Pakistan is in this whole equation in that part of the world. Can you help us a bit?
And so the test for President Obama, if you put all this together in one bowl, is can we work well with Pakistan to help to stabilize Afghanistan in the short term, but not tilt towards Pakistan so that we don't derive the great benefit of a global strategic partnership with India in the future. We should always be friends with Israel. And we obviously, I think, have an historical and moral obligation to stand by Israel, and certainly not to see Israel's security undermined in any kind of way. And I think President Obama is there. He agrees with that. Every American president has since Harry Truman. On the other hand, the Israelis are now not contributing to a resolution of the problem with the Palestinians. And there's not going to be peace in that part of the world. And I lived there for 2 years, worked in the West Bank for 2 years, until the Palestinians have their own state. And the presence of these Israeli settlements in the West Bank and the building of Israeli communities in East Jerusalem is a major impediment to progress in those negotiations. So I agreed very much last spring and again in the last few weeks when the Obama administration said they drew a line in the sand and they said to their friend, Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, don't cross that line. But I disagree that the Obama administration was not prepared for the answer. Because the answer was predictable. Bibi Netanyahu, for all sorts of reasons, was going to cross that line and say to the Obama administration, I'm going to build 1,600 houses in East Jerusalem. And it would have been, I think, much smarter tactically for the Obama administration to have assumed and predicted that answer and had a plan B. What do you do with some of the hardcore terrorists in Guantanamo? You can't let them loose. That would be extraordinarily irresponsible. Because future 9/11s, you know, God forbid, we don't have them, but it's possible. And so how do you try Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind of 9/11? Do you try him in a civil court in downtown Manhattan? Do you try him in a military tribunal in Charleston, South Carolina? These are really tough legal issues, but my opinion is Guantanamo should close, A. B, the United States should not torture. I really think one of the best things Barack Obama did in 2009 from Inauguration Day onward would be to say, we can fight terrorism and we can retain our democratic principles at the same time. There isn't a trade-off, because some people in our country were saying, we got to leave our democratic principles at the door when we deal with Al-Qaeda. I profoundly disagree with that.
It's been terrific. Ambassador Burns, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah.
So thank you, gentlemen. What a wonderful program. Wonderful.